Good afternoon, Griffin fans. My name is David Oliverio. I'm the Assistant Sports Information Director at Seton University. Today, we have men's lacrosse coach Brian Novotny on to chat with us. Brian, say hi to everybody.
Hello, Griffin Nation.
Coach, I know that we've been social distancing and a lot of times we've been completely locked down in our houses. What have you been doing over the last 2.5 weeks?
Man, what have I been doing? It's been an interesting transition to say the least. You go from 70-hour work weeks and during the season typically, and that completely stops in a matter of 24 to 48 hours, and transitioning to working remotely here. So for me, what I've been doing really is trying to be present, obviously, for my family, obviously trying to be present for the team, communicating with the team a lot, trying to help those guys make decisions and get through this transition for them. Trying to be a very good husband to my wife, trying to be a very good father to my kids. My children, my two sons, have started homeschooling now, and I've got an education degree that I am now finding myself having to use quite often. Online teaching or online learning for an 8-year-old is a little challenging at times. So that's my youngest son. Him and I have had a few battles, but we're getting through it. And then I've been able to get a lot of work in around the house and in the yard as well. It's been kind of a little bit of a stress reliever for me, just to sort of unplug from the situation as it is and put my mind to a task at hand and try to accomplish that task, whatever it may be.
Coach, you talked about online learning. Side note, in undergrad and in grad school, I stayed away from online classes because for me and the way that I learn, it was always better to be in class. And a lot of people don't quite know this. People who know me, they know me as kind of a different person. But in class, I was in the front row, raising my hand, talking to the teacher at all times, because I knew that that was going to benefit me more in the long run, especially in that class. So when it comes to online learning, I think I took like 3 online classes, absolutely failed all 3 of them because I couldn't be there. I couldn't be immersed in it. So I can't imagine what an 8-year-old is going through having to do that online. And they're lucky, your children are lucky that you have an education degree and can be there to kind of help them through that process.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm a little bit older than you, but online learning started to come in at the end of my college career, and I stayed away from it also. It just didn't feel right to me. It was something that was very foreign to me. I've noticed that my children, my sons, have taken to it really easily, honestly. There's a little bit of a challenge there just in terms of the attention, gaining and keeping their attention. But they're so immersed in the technology world. They're so up to date on being in front of a screen that it's really not a foreign concept to them. Maybe interacting with that screen the way they are, but even things like Xbox and video gaming and whatnot, when they're playing, they're talking to their friends or they're communicating with their classmates and whatnot. So it's really not all that unusual. I was really surprised with the 8-year-olds, how many of them were communicating and typing on the platform that their school is using. Just like right away, they started typing and saying hi to each other and talking to the teacher. It was pretty amazing how resilient they are and how adept at technology they are.
We grew up with flip phones and dial-up internet. These kids are growing up with iPads and Xbox when you're playing online, a PlayStation, and all of the things. Have you taken up any video games during this time?
I was when I was a younger man, I was pretty good at Madden and NHL and all the EA sports games. I haven't really taken any up lately. I've been playing a little bit of NHL with my oldest son. He likes to challenge me from time to time. I'm currently 3-0 in Stanley Cup Series against him and in NHL 20. So I've asserted my dominance a little bit in the household there. But, I've been talking with the guys on the team a lot, and that's actually one of the ways that they're communicating with each other right now is through Xbox Live or PlayStation, maybe PlayStation Live. I'm not sure exactly what their service is called. But as we've talked to them, we've heard them say, like, I'm getting online and playing Call of Duty seems to be the real hot one now, Call of Duty and Fortnite a little bit. But I'm playing Call of Duty with this guy and this guy and this guy, and we're having conversations, or we're communicating, or we're catching up, or whatever it may be. So pretty interesting, again, just to, how the world is different. David, you said we grew up with flip phones and dial-up internet. Those things didn't come around till I was in college. So I grew up without flip phones and without dial-up internet. I had a rotary phone when I was younger that we had to, dial a number and then wait until it went all the way back to zero before we could dial the next one. So it is pretty interesting to see the differences, though, and the growth, and again, just how adept they are at technology.
It's interesting. I always heard that kids, in the last 10 years, kids they're too immersed. They're staying at home too much. But they're, better off with this social distancing than, our age groups, because we didn't grow up. They're naturally social distancing, one could say, because they're playing online at home when we were out playing at the park and we were out doing things. So like, these kids are probably better suited for this than the older age group is.
I was talking with my parents the other day, and my father and mother are both retired, but I asked my father how he was doing, and he said, "This is great. This is what I do every day, any day. Now that I'm retired, I just sit around and watch movies." And my children, and I'm sure the kids of this generation are certainly a little bit more dialed into this kind of lifestyle, than some of the others here. But it's interesting. So I guess retired folk and younger kids are really kind of specially equipped to handle this social distancing situation that we find ourselves in.
Coach, let's switch gears. We'll talk a little bit about the season and about the team. Where were you? What were you doing when you first got word that the season was going to be canceled?
Yeah, so what a crazy 24, 48 hours that was. And it seems like it was so long ago, and it really wasn't that long ago, but we were practicing. It was a Thursday, and we were practicing, getting ready for probably our biggest game of the year, which was a away game at Mercyhurst. And Mercyhurst was ranked 2 in the country. We were ranked number 7. We were both undefeated, and that's a huge rivalry. I mean, those are really big rival games. And we were in the middle of practice, and we were having an amazing practice. I mean, our guys were flying around. They were really engaged, probably the best practice we had had all year. And we had had a lot of good ones, but this particular one happened to be the best. And we had a water break, and I looked at my phone real quick to see if there was any updates, because information was flying around like crazy at that point in time. And looked at my phone, and I saw that the NCAA had canceled the spring championship season. And we made the decision to push through with practice and finish it out. And, that moment, although really tough to hear those things, it was really disappointing to hear. Being able to be with the team at that time and being on the field, even, I would say, was a lot of really healthy medicine. And, just were able to really enjoy that. It's probably another 45 minutes left in practice when I found out, and Coach Golan and Coach Isles both found out at the same time that I did. But that last 45 minutes in practice was just really enjoyable, man, to know that we probably weren't going to have it tomorrow, and to be able to enjoy it with the guys. So we finished that practice. We told the guys at the end of practice the news that we had, the news that we had heard, about the NCAA championships. And honestly, we didn't really know what it meant at that moment. I tell people I went to bed on Thursday night not knowing if I needed to pack a bag to leave to play Mercyhurst on Saturday. We were leaving on Friday around midday. So I came into work without a bag packed and figured, kind of bet my odds that we weren't going to play that game. And I figured if we had to leave, I could run home and pack something up real quick and get on the road. But it was a crazy few days there, man. That week just sort of snowballed on us. Earlier in the week, we had heard that a few conferences had canceled. And then, of course, the big one was the NBA. When the NBA announced that, I think got everybody's attention and really started to make people question what we were doing and why we were doing it.
Yeah, we had heard a couple things kind of floated around, a couple ideas when it comes to athletics. Maybe we were going to play without fans. Maybe we were going to play with limited fans. Maybe we're going to do this. But it was, I think, the NBA when I forget, maybe it was Utah, and I don't remember what team it was, where one of the players tested positive. And then you have to think, well, what does that player, where have they been? And NBA teams travel all over the country, and it's not that different than college. A lot of college teams, especially when you get to the Division 1 level, they're traveling all over the country too. So if in this particular virus lasts for so long on surfaces that we just couldn't, I just feel like we couldn't guarantee safety. And that was a wake up call for everybody to say, all right, we can't do this because we can't guarantee athlete safety. I definitely can't guarantee fan safety. But if we can't do that, then we can't do this. A lot of people don't quite understand this. It's not up to the NCAA to shut down athletics. They can shut down their championships, but they can't shut down. That's up to the individual schools. The NCAA is an association. It's up to the individual schools and conferences to stop what they're doing. But the NCAA took that first step and said, okay, we're not going to hold the championships. So at that point, why are you playing the games? We play the games, and especially a team at your level. Just 2 years ago, we're in the national semifinals. Wanted to get back there again this year, had high hopes to do so. And at that point, I think we probably, if we would have kept playing, probably would have lost the will of the teams because there's nothing to play for, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a really difficult one to go through, and as you were talking about like canceling or not having fans at games and whatnot. I mean, we went through the whole gamut that week that we were getting ready for Mercyhurst. So, I think on Monday or Tuesday we were playing the game, and it was going to be a normal game. By Wednesday we had said, okay, no fans. By Thursday, we had said nobody on campus. So I know some of our fans were planning on traveling up and like hanging out in the parking lot, and that got shut down. And then by Friday, we weren't playing at all, So a really weird week, a lot of adversity that week, a lot of new information coming out very, very quickly. But you're right. I think the NCAA taking the step to say, hey, we're going to shut down the spring championships. Again, with some other things that happened and some other announcements that were made, really made us all take a step back and say, hey, like, what are we doing, and what's our role in all of this? Certainly as educators, as coaches, as administrators, our first and primary concern is always safety of our students, right? I mean, that should be paramount for us. And when you start talking about traveling and being in very confined quarters, whether it's buses, locker rooms, hotels, whatever it may be, it just does not make a lot of sense when you start to piece it all together. And it's just too risky to, and for what? For a game, and certainly those games are really important to us, and on our young men, our staff put a lot of time and effort into preparing for those, but not at the risk of our safety, So I think the NCAA made a really bold call in canceling the championships. And I think the conferences acted really swiftly once that happened, and there's certainly some ones that were out at the forefront of it that deserve a lot of credit. I think like the NESCAC Division III conference was the first one to cancel. The Ivy League wasn't very far behind, and then the Patriot League was right there. Like, they deserve a lot of credit to make a bold decision at a time when a lot of people didn't want to make it. It wasn't an easy decision to make, but when you look back on it, I think with a little bit of reflection and perspective, it was the right decision, and it should have been an easier one than what it was at the time.
Coach, how have you been keeping in contact with your team?
Yeah, so we've been communicating with them a few different ways. I mean, obviously, email is one way that we've been communicating our message with them. We have a GroupMe account, so I tend to send out a message on that at least once a day, if not more. We've been doing phone calls and FaceTime calls with them. And then we're going to get going with some group video conferencing here. So probably, something so we can get in front of each other in real time and see each other. I tend to be someone when leading, when adversity hits, I want to be around our guys. Like I want to call them together and have a meeting. I want to be able to, to put my arms around them if we need to. I want to be able to slap them if I need to. I want to be able to do whatever it may be and look them in the eyes. And it's hard to communicate. It's a little different. There's certainly an adjustment period here to communicate with them and not be able to do it while we're all sitting in a classroom together, or we're all in a meeting room together, or in a locker room together. So I think there's an adjustment period there, but I think we're innovating here. We're finding some new ways. I think we're taking a lot of what we see other programs doing right now at all different levels and in all different sports and all different organizations, truthfully. I mean, even looking at businesses right now and saying, what are they doing? How are they communicating? How are they connecting? And how can we make that work for us?
Coach, what advice have you given the members of your team, including coaching staff, on how to? I think we can fall into a little. I know that I wore sweatpants for the first like 5 days. So now, this week, I've actually decided to dress up because I need some sort of normalcy in my life. I needed to stop wearing just t-shirts and sweatpants. So every day I'm wearing dress slacks and trying to do something to give me a sense of normalcy. What advice have you given your team?
I think immediately what we were talking to our guys about was probably four things that we really hit on. The first one was to have a plan academically to be successful. So a really big transition, as we talked about earlier, from in-person classes to online classes. And I wasn't necessarily worried about our older guys because they've probably had an online class or two, maybe more throughout their career. I was a little bit more concerned with the freshmen. They may have never had an online class at all, and suddenly now they've gone to 3, 4, 5 online classes. So we wanted to make sure that they had a plan academically to finish the semester and be successful there. We told them to invest their time and to be present with where they are, right? So a little bit of a unique situation where we've got these stay-at-home orders and whatnot. So let's invest our time in our families. Let's invest our time in our teammates. Let's make sure that we're continuing to be good teammates and investing in worthwhile pursuits. Investing time in themselves, even in terms of maybe picking up a new hobby or picking up a just something to do to keep themselves occupied. We that kind of ties into the next ones. We told them to have a plan for self-improvement, right? So again, picking up a hobby, working out, eating healthy, getting good sleep, making sure that particularly the seniors were coping well with what was going on, because it was such a quick turnaround from when their season ended to when we were no longer able to be together, that we wanted to make sure that they were really coping well and they weren't going out and making bad decisions, that they were living a healthy lifestyle. And then the last thing we asked them, Dave, was just to keep faith, just to have faith and know that, we'll get through this as a country, as a university, as a lacrosse program. We're going to get through this and we're going to be back together again. And those days, hopefully, we'll have a lot of really great perspective to look back on and really enjoy those days and live in those moments. And just celebrate being together again. So those are really the four things: was have a plan academically, invest your time wisely, have a plan for self-improvement, and then keep the faith.
Coach, I'm going to try to phrase this question. Coach, I know the NCAA has sort of put out some things about spring sport athletes that were going to graduate this year, maybe granting another year of eligibility. What advice have you given your seniors on the decision? Because that's a big decision for seniors. Do you want to try to come back for another year? Do you want to enter the workforce? Do you want to say, well, I'm done? What advice have you given your seniors on that?
Yeah, I think we've tried to really, it's an interesting conversation. In fact, I just laid this out for one of our guys the other day. As coaches, we would certainly love to have them all back, and we would really, they make us a better program. They tend to make us a better team having them around. But as a coach, when you recruit a young man, at least for our program, we ask them to commit 4 years to us. And when those 4 years are up, you want to make sure that you're serving as a resource for them as they move on in their career or their lives, whatever it may be. So, a little conflicted right now as a coach, and what we're trying to do is just really serve as a resource for our guys. So does it make sense for them on an individual level to come back? Some of our young men were going to pursue graduate degrees and can't do that at Seton Hill. Some of our young men were going to pursue graduate degrees and could do that at Seton Hill. So those are conversations we're having. Some maybe have some undergraduate academic work to go through. So it's really, does it make sense for them on a personal level and on a family level also? We are not a Power 5 Division I football team. Not everybody is on a full scholarship with us. So that's a whole conversation that has to be had, as well as a lot of families haven't budgeted to pay for 5 years of schooling or college, and that's a really difficult conversation. That's a really important part of the puzzle, I think, for most of our guys, is what is the affordability factor of it. But really trying to serve as a resource for them and just let them know what their options are. Try to give them as much information about whatever path they want to go on that we can give them, and then try to help them pursue whatever it is, that plan that they set on. So if they're going to continue on in their graduate work at another university, we want to be a resource for them there. If they're going to go into the workforce, we want to be a resource for them there. If they're going to come back to Seton Hill, certainly we're going to try to be a resource for them there. So just really trying to do what we do. I think with everybody else, there's just some uniqueness to this situation. Some differences from years past. When guys are done, they're done. They have another option there. So just making sure that they know those options.
Coach, a lot of people look at coaches and they just think that, well, they're coaches. But a lot of coaches, many of them, like yourselves, have families. How has this cancellation of a season, at this time of year, you are lacrosse. You wake up, you come to the office, you're dealing with lacrosse. Then you go home and you're probably going to bed because you've been there for so long. Maybe you've been on a trip. How has this affected you, and how have you gone about handling now being a stay-at-home dad, when before you were working 60, 70 hours a week?
Yeah, it's really an interesting question, David. And I always tell my wife at the end of the season, there's kind of like this reacclimatization period to me being around. For me, hey, I'm around the family more now, and I have to kind of realign my priorities and whatnot. I think there's a reacclimatization for my family when I am done with the season as well, to get used to me being around and, having to make dinner for me or whatever it may be, just being present and now having to take into account maybe what I want to do on a weekend versus what they're planning on doing without me normally. I'm very fortunate to have an amazing wife and two amazing boys. And it's been really fun to be around them day in and day out. My wife does work. She's a nurse and works in a medical ICU unit. So she's on the front lines of this right now. And she's amazing at home. She's amazing at work. She's just a great person and doing great. But it has been a bit of a transition. I think we're all probably going a little stir crazy from time to time. When that happens, I just try to take a deep breath and realize how grateful I am to have this time with my family, and how grateful I am to have this time with my sons and my wife, because we normally don't get it, and you're right. When we're in season, we're working, 70, 80, who knows how many hours a week, and, going on road trips and whatnot. We were supposed to start a 3-week road trip, not for the whole 3 weeks, but 3 weekends in a row. We were going to be on the road right when our season got canceled. And, that's a lot of time on the road. It's a lot of time away from the people you love at home. And, as disappointed as we are that the season is canceled, I think we're really very fortunate. And certainly I have a lot of personal gratitude that I get to spend this time with my family. And, it's been a real blessing.
Coach, you said your wife is an ICU nurse. How has that been? How have you guys been handling that as a family?
Yeah, I think just supporting her as best we can. She's got to go into work, 2 or 3 days a week, and like I said, she's on the front lines of it, being in the medical ICU unit. So she works night shifts. So when to work, we have a few hours kicking around the house before we all go to bed, and we wait in the morning and maybe have a few minutes before she gets home. It hasn't really changed a whole lot for us, honestly, David. I think she's always pretty cautious of what she's bringing back into the house. Certainly, that's a concern though. With this, is she bringing germs back into the house? But she's amazing. Again, all of our healthcare professionals, all of the medical professionals that are out there dealing with this virus and helping us overcome this virus on a day-to-day basis. Like, thank you. Your efforts are appreciated. And, it's great that they're getting some awareness and some awareness right now. Great that they're getting some attention paid to them, because they do this on a day-to-day basis. I've been married to my wife for, was it 15 years now, 15 years this September. And, she's been doing this since before we were even dating, and it's great that they're getting a little bit of awareness and some attention paid to them now. They certainly deserve it.
Well, they absolutely deserve it. So, tell your wife, thank you from me and myself and my whole family. Thank you for everything that she does. And thank you to all of our service personnel, from the doctors, the nurses, the people at the grocery stores right now, who are having to deal with the public all the time, performing an absolutely necessary function to our society. Without those people, we're not going to function right now. So thank you to all of them.
Yeah, correct. Isn't that great that this is giving us a little bit of perspective on those people that maybe we take for granted day in and day out? That person that's cutting the lunch meat at Giant Eagle or the grocery store. And isn't it great that those people are getting a little bit of attention paid to them right now? And we realize and we know how important they are to us moving forward on a day-to-day basis. Like, that's phenomenal. That's one of the great outcomes that could potentially come out of this is our perspective.
Well, Coach, thank you for joining me today. We just hope that your family is safe, and we look forward to seeing you again on campus, hopefully sooner rather than later. We don't know how long this is going to last, but sooner or later, we are going to come back and things are going to resume. I don't know how what normal is after this, but we're going to have something. We are going to have a school. Sports will continue at some time. So thank you for joining me today, and God bless.
Thanks, David. Thanks to Griffin Nation. Keep the faith. Make sure you're being safe and smart.